Hey everyone, it's time for another live look at the astrology. My name is Katie Sweetman, and this is your look at the astrology for May 8th through 14th, 2023. So we are officially done with eclipse season, although you could argue that we are sort of still in its windows of energies, and that really takes us into the new moon that's later this month. But in the meantime, we are still in a lunar month that began with a solar eclipse. So we're sort of in this energy where things are shifting, new stories are coming in, and maybe even things are coming out. But we are past the eclipses. How are you all doing? How did you all feel that Scorpio full moon lunar eclipse? It kind of had a little bit of a little spice to it. So as always, if you are watching live, or even if you are not watching live, let me know where you're watching from. It's just fun. It warms my Sagittarius rising heart to know where we are all from, because I know because you're either my clients, or I ran into an old connection of mine at a party this weekend. She's like, oh, well, I feel like we haven't lost connection because I listen to you every Tuesday morning. So it's funny like that. It's kind of a one-way conversation, but it's always nice to see people in the chat, or even I'm on Spotify, I'm on YouTube, I'm also on Instagram. So we have a lot to cover this week. And even though we are in the sort of like post eclipse energies, one of the things that got a little bit lost in last week's astrology is Venus in Cancer. So Venus is what's called the ruler of Taurus season. Taurus is a sign that's ruled by Venus. What is rulership? Well, rulership is a technical term, but it's actually a really important term that hopefully you all can start to familiarize yourself with. Each sign of the zodiac has a ruling planet. It's a little side note. I use traditional rulers. That's more for Scorpio, etc. But for the case of Taurus, Taurus is ruled by Venus. And that means the energy of Taurus season points toward whatever and wherever Venus is in the sky. And over the past few weeks, Venus has been in Gemini. This kind of created a little bit of frenetic energy, and even an interesting energy with even the Mercury retrograde. Mercury is the ruler of Gemini. But now that we have this shift, now the energy of the season is not in Gemini anymore. It's pointing towards Cancer. So it's actually something that I said on social media, on I think my Instagram. I think that Taurus and Cancer are a delightful pairing of signs. Why? Well, in traditional astrology, the moon is exalted. This is also a rulership, but also what's called essential dignity. The moon is exalted in Taurus, and the moon is the ruler of Cancer. I know it's a lot of technical information that I'm throwing at you kind of early on, but it just says that there's this affinity between Taurus and Cancer, that the moon does its best work in the sign of Taurus. So what am I trying to say? Well, Taurus is the first earth sign. It's also the first fixed sign. It really talks about these really important resources and the basics that we all need to survive, but it's also pleasure. The pleasure of life, the romance, the sweetness of life. Remember, Taurus is ruled by Venus. Well, then you have Cancer. Cancer ruled by the moon. First water sign, but also the second cardinal sign. But it really kind of gets into that primal energy of connection, home, family. And how when you have these two energies together, these are two signs that just really want to settle in. Get cozy, get comfy, hang out, spend time at home, spend time with loved ones, spend time with family. And, I realize family is a little bit of a complicated word for a lot of people, but we can seek out that type of energy in other ways. So when I think of Taurus and Cancer, and these are two food signs. Virgo is the third food sign, but Taurus is the pleasure of eating. Cancer is the sort of the comfort and the nostalgia of eating. And since we're on the topic, Virgo, it's sort of like the health and hygiene of eating. Food as medicine, Virgo. But that said, we're stepping into that about last week or so of Taurus season. And it's really about enjoying the pleasures of the season, the pleasures of food, comfort, family. I always think of like people around a table sharing a meal when I think of Taurus and Cancer. And they're like, this kind of like that nostalgic energy with Cancer. It really wants that home cooked meal. It's for that memory or that sense memory of something from long ago. That's why I posted a picture of donuts in my social media today. Whatever you like. But yeah, so maybe it's going to give us a little bit of TLC after a lot of the ups and downs of Taurus season. Taurus season with a full moon in Scorpio, and then even as we get into Tuesday, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. We have a little bit of a rendezvous with Uranus, and if you recall, in the lunar eclipse last week on May 5th, Uranus was very prominent in the energies. It's sort of activated by something called an opposition. So Uranus is in Taurus, Scorpio is the other side of the zodiac, opposite of Taurus, and it really sort of activated Uranus. Now, Uranus's job is to get us to grow and evolve by any means possible. It will shake us up. It will shake us awake. It will get us out of a rut. And maybe sometimes we get stuck in something. We can't see our way out of something. Here comes Uranus, and Uranus can liberate. It can even get us to really powerfully see things differently. Uranus in astrology is the archetype of Prometheus. If you know your mythology, Prometheus was the god that gave fire to humanity. So Uranus has a little bit of a reputation for being kind of a wild card in astrology, but it's sort of, I think we all need to go back, and you've heard me say this over and over again, I'll say it again, that since May of 2018, March of 2019, Uranus has been in Taurus. And maybe you're like, oh, that's no big deal, Katie. Well, Uranus will spend 7 years, 7 years in each of the zodiac signs, taking a total of 84 years to go around the zodiac. So it will concentrate its energies on one sign for 7 years. And if you are a Taurus, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And even if you're not a Taurus, number one, you have Taurus somewhere in your astrology. Don't say I have nothing in Taurus. Taurus governs, according to the structure of your astrology, a particular area of your life. It could be a relationship sign. It could be a career sign, for example. And the other thing is that if you are a fixed sign, my fixed signs are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. These are signs that probably do not look anything like they did in 2018, 2019. What is fixed signs? What's fixed energy? In our material and manifest world, of which Taurus is one of the signs that governs over our material and manifest world, meaning the things that we can touch, food, our, agriculture, reality, money, resource. These are the things that typically you want fixed. You want a stable sense of food and resources to be able to take care of yourself, for example, take care of your family, to feel like you have enough food, enough crops, if we're getting like really traditional about it. You don't want to plant seeds in a place where the weather is very unstable. The exposure to sun is very infrequent. So Taurus talks about the optimal conditions for life to thrive. That sounds nice. But things have not been so optimal the past few years. I think we could probably all agree on that, and how Taurus, while it's been through Uranus and particularly getting into 2020, 2021, and 2022, when Uranus was in Aquarius. Aquarius is also a fixed sign. We saw a lot of friction in our material and manifested world. Hopefully we can all agree on that as well. So while Saturn has moved on, it's moved on to Pisces as of March 7th, we still have Uranus and Taurus. So here we are this week, just on the heels of a Scorpio lunar eclipse. The sun, the Taurus sun, meets up with Uranus at 18 degrees. So this is like actually our 5th conjunction during the series. So we can go back to points in, let's say, April 2019, April 2020, getting into probably, I think it was May of 2022. here we are, it's May. So this, whatever happens this week and what happens around the eclipses is not isolated. It's part of a bigger story. And I know that I trot out this personal example all the time. Thank you for listening. In the beginning of 2018, I was in IT and graphic design. I had an 20-year IT career. Yes, I used to be in IT and design. And even though my heart was in doing this, and I was doing this on the side, I was doing this on weekends, on weeknights, I was working nonstop, I knew that it was not my destiny. It wasn't what I was put on this planet to do. So we go into the beginning of 2018, and then suddenly the stable job, not so stable anymore. Fast forward, March 2019, Uranus did retrograde out of Taurus in November of 2018. So we had this sort of May to November 2018 preview. March of 2019, I leave my job of 12 years and also my career of 20 years to do this full time. And I did this a whole year before a pandemic started. It all worked out by the grace of God. I don't know how, but what I'm trying to say is sometimes we have to really shake things up. And Uranus is a planet that demands radical authenticity. So if something is not for you, that's where sometimes Uranus will show you that something's not for you. I'm not saying this is and of course my personal example is just my own. Like everybody's been living this energy in their own way. And maybe it's been quiet, or maybe it's been behind the scenes, or maybe it's something that's less tangible, like a career or other big capital L life stuff. Maybe it's about, how you see the world or how you see yourself, or maybe, it is big L stuff. It's relationships, it's family. Like I said, you might talk to your Aquariuses, talk to your Leos, talk to your Tauruses, talk to your Scorpios. I'm pretty sure they all have something to share with you about this transit. And this is just to be real. It's not to hopefully create anxiety. It's just to say that there are times where something wants to come into our life, and we may be scared, we may be resistant, we may be in our own way. And Uranus is just trying to keep the show going, because we do have free will. And you do hear me say, the astrology is 50%. You are the other 50%. Although there are times where that other 50%, meaning the cosmos, is a little bit bigger than us. And we have to respect that there are forces greater than us, just like the oceans and the sun and all these things that we can't control, but we can control how we show up. So this may be a week where maybe a small group of you are doing some really brave things. You are, leaving behind something that is seemingly stable and secure, but it's not letting you grow. It's holding you back. It doesn't fit you. It's too small. For some of you, this is sort of that next step in a stage of evolution that's been fast, unfolding over the past few years. It could be relationships. It could be health and wellness, whether it's about shifting your relationship with health and wellness or shifting your relationship with your body. Again, when I go through each of the 12 zodiac signs, we'll get a little refresher on what part of your life Uranus has been trying to open up, change, transform, and even reinvent over the last 5 years. I remember at the beginning of this transit, I said to certain people who had stuff in early fixed signs, and particularly my early Taurus clients, it was like, what is the most radical thing you can do? It's a question that's meant to be provocative. It's also meant to open up a line of conversation. And I think, kind of got little question marks for some clients, but they came back to me and then they're like, oh my God, look how much has changed. A client who went from just being serially single to married with a baby very quickly. It's kind of crazy how this all stuff works out. So how are you going to work with this energy this week to break out of something? It could be a pattern. It could be a pattern of limitation, something that keeps you away from your highest potential. To sit and to reflect on what this energy means for you and what this time has meant for you. And we've still got a couple more years of Uranus and Taurus. This takes us into 2026. I can't remember the exact date. It could be, I think, March of 2026 or so, but don't quote me on that. But yeah, we got a couple more years, and by the time we get to Uranus's, the end of Uranus and Taurus, we can look back and be like, wow, look at 7 years. For the same reason, when we got to 2018, I'm sure all the Aries listening can go back to 2010, 2011, when Uranus went to Aries and be like, oh, there we go. That's what's going on. That's my dog. So yeah, Sun conjunct Uranus this week. And then as we get to the end of this week, the Venus in Cancer makes something called a trine to Saturn. So this is a trine is a stabilizing influence. Venus, the planet of money, currency, value. It's also relationships and socialization, interaction. And Saturn loves relationships. So this is a little bit of a check-in on Saturn in Pisces. I was just thinking about Saturn in Pisces. My dog's digging. How Saturn is a little bit quiet in the background compared to what it was doing the past few years in Aquarius. So it's almost like that Pisces energy. But as we get into June 17th is when Saturn will turn direct at 7 degrees of Pisces. So we've got until June to really see at what is trying to take shape and take form while Saturn is in Pisces. And that's the thing about Pisces, is that Pisces, just by its nature, is outside of this physical world. It's the last sign of the zodiac. So this is why Saturn feels a bit quiet. It's building, shaping, and forming something that maybe we can't necessarily directly see. We can feel, we can intuit, but we will check back in on that in the middle of June. It's still May. So let's look at the astrology of this week for May 8th through 14th, 2023. Again, my name is Katie Sweetman. For those who do not know me, I'm an astrologer and psychic medium here in the New York City area, and every week we gather live to talk about the astrology. And I'm like, again, it's always funny when I sit down with a client, they're like, oh, I feel like I know you, or like run to a friend at a party. Oh, I haven't seen you in 3 years, but I watch you every week. So thank you. Anyway, let's go back to the astrology for this week, May 8th through 14th, 2023. So as we start the week, we are coming off of that Scorpio full moon eclipse season, which happens every 6 months. That part is not a big deal, but eclipses have a pretty tried and true reputation for changing the narrative. Without going into details, I was like, oh, look, eclipses, they're happening. And these eclipses, they build upon a story that came in with the last eclipses in October and November of 2022. This is the last Scorpio eclipse in the series of eclipses, not for another 9 years, so enjoy it. But this is the last Scorpio eclipse. We have one more eclipse in this series. This will be a Taurus full moon lunar eclipse on October 28th. So it's like the story is starting to wrap up. We had that first eclipse in Aries on April 20th. So we're sort of in this interstitial place and saying goodbye to one chapter that's been with us since 2021, and then stepping into something new, courtesy of that solar eclipse we had in Aries back on April 20th. So that's that rush of something new. But we have to make space. We have to release Scorpio in order for something new to come in. I get it. Scorpio is an intense sign. I always feel like, people are like, oh, Scorpio, unfriend, delete. I don't want to listen to this lady anymore. But I got to do my due diligence for Scorpio. I am a Scorpio. For us to understand that it has an importance in the zodiac, and it also has an importance as one of the fixed signs. It reminds us that in life, in creation and manifestation, everything ends so that something new can come in. Then we get to Tuesday, May the 9th, and it's Wednesday, May the 10th. I think is at the conjunction. I'm sorry, from one day off. I don't have my calendar in front of me. But we have the Sun-Uranus conjunction at 18 degrees. So this go back to what I was saying in the introduction. That's, a lot of these bigger shifts and awakenings. And I think some of the hardest things, especially with that Scorpio energy, is typically Scorpio is a bit resistant to change, which is ironic because everybody says, oh, Scorpio is a sign of change. But my joke about Scorpio is that it will do change when it's on its own terms, when it's good and ready. But I think that's been the hardest part with the Uranus and Taurus, is because Scorpios had to really learn to let go, learn to open up to a process that is bigger than it. And maybe that's something that we can all sort of see in our own life. But this might be a week that really kind of reverberates the energy of the eclipses with that Sun-Uranus conjunction. If your birthday is on the 10th, maybe plus or minus a day, it's going to be a big year for you. It's about pivot points, doing things differently, reinventions, and even reinventions that have been, even like 3, 4, and 5 years in the making. Then we get to later this week, and as we start to, I think it's Thursday or Wednesday or Thursday, the moon goes into Aquarius, and we start to get to what's called the last quarter moon. And I want to highlight that because the lunar phases, especially in a month that has eclipses, are really important to watch because they are these sort of moments of manifestation. So we might see the eclipse on Thursday, coming into shape, into Wednesday, Thursday, coming into shape and form because the moon is in Aquarius, and Aquarius squares 9 degrees the Scorpio lunar eclipse at 14, almost 15 degrees. Then we get into the end of the week. We have a couple of sextiles, Mercury sextile Venus, Mercury sextile Saturn. That really leads us into the weekend. And it is a Pisces moon weekend. So it's interesting. We have this Pisces moon weekend. We have Venus trine Saturn. So, I was talking earlier about Saturn and Pisces. Saturn has been in Pisces since March 7th of 2023. We're in this sort of new facet of time, in addition to the other big change that happened in March 23rd, Pluto going into Aquarius. The Saturn's been a little bit in the background, but we have Venus in Cancer, water sign. We have Saturn in Pisces, water sign, moon in Pisces. So it might be just a week that really talks about spirituality, emotions, art, music, relationships, connection, really building relationship and connection. It's just sort of this reminder that Venus is exalted in Libra. This is a essential dignity point. It's a little bit of a technical term, but it's important that Venus, but more importantly, Saturn does its best work in relationships. We need relationships. We are human beings. We are social creatures. And so this is a week to also remember that we need connection in all forms, not just, romantic relationship, not just capital R relationship. So it's really, as we get to the end of the week, to see how Saturn provides a little bit of a steady hand after all the ups and downs of eclipse season. I think that Mercury sextile Venus, Mercury sextile Saturn is a bit of a quiet influence, but maybe it's great for having conversations, saying the right thing, being open-hearted, especially with all that Pisces energy and that Venus in Cancer. So that is your look at the astrology of this week. Let's look at each of the 12 zodiac signs, starting with Aries. Aries, so your planet is Mars, and Mars is actually starting to wrap up its time in Cancer. I believe it's the 20th of May. Mars will go into Leo. So what do you need to understand? It's been probably about 4 weeks, give or take, where your planet Mars has been pointing towards Cancer, which is pointing you towards home and family. And it's about really shoring up your roots, getting back to the things that matter. Maybe you've had to really focus on home and family or the household. Maybe something has been going on in your household, or maybe even with a family member. It's a bit of an emotional time, and maybe something that picks up on these really kind of these deep root instinctual emotions for you. When Mars changes signs, it'll go into Aries, a lot of fire. It'll go into Leo, a lot of fire. So it's, if you're kind of feeling a little bit behind the scenes, a little bit emotional, you give it another week or two, and then things will start to shift. That said, we just had that Scorpio lunar eclipse, and that Scorpio lunar eclipse hit on some really big emotional points. Am I safe? Do I have enough? Things about family, things about the past, things about home. And so maybe you're feeling things are a little bit shaking. Do keep in mind Scorpio is a money and finance sign as much as it is about these deep emotions. And then you have the Sun-Uranus conjunction in Taurus this week. So this is where you need to go back and maybe do a little bit of homework, Aries. What has been the story with money and finance since 2018, but in particular, March of 2019 going forward? Every Aries rising is going to live this differently. But this is for you to understand that this has been, 4 or 5 years of you reinventing your relationship with the material plane. For some Aries rising, this means, a lot of shifts in money and how you earn a living and your job and sense of material stability. And for some Aries rising is actually a breakthrough. But to see what is the story that is coming up this week and how this is trying to get you to do things differently, either to earn a living differently, to reevaluate what you value, what you need, letting go of something of the past, something about home and family. You'd be so surprised or not surprised how much our conditioning around money and stability and security is so unconsciously influenced by family and even ancestral patterns. So how do you just let that all go, Aries? Taurus, you are in a little bit of the spotlight this week, and I know that it is coming to the end of your birthday season. So if your birthday's this week, happy birthday. If your birthday is on the 10th, 11th, 9th, maybe even the 8th, you've got Sun-Uranus, Sun conjunct Uranus. So this is something that's been playing out actually over the last 4 or 5 years. We've talked about this at different points, Taurus. Since May of 2018, March of 2019, Uranus, this sort of evolutionary force, has been in your sign. For those that are born towards the beginning of Taurus, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about at this point. For those that are born a little bit later, you are kind of getting into this energy now. Uranus is the planet of awakenings, reinventions, breakthroughs, breakdowns, breakups, but also breaking free of something that has been holding you back or something that's just not who you are. And for you to go and to see the story that's been unfolding over the last few years. That's not to say that every Taurus is going to have a shakeup or this is necessarily a negative thing. Of course not. But this energy is pointing towards voice, communication, how you think and listen and learn, how you speak, how you share yourself, for example. But that said, you are just right off of a lunar eclipse in Scorpio. This has been putting its sort of spotlight on relationships. So there's something that is like working out between you and a partner or you and another person, needing to make different choices, new choices, go in different directions, or to see things very differently. Gemini. So Gemini, your planet is still retrograde. I think we have another week to go while Mercury is retrograde, and it's in Taurus. And I've been saying this to you the past few weeks, but Mercury retrograde in Taurus for you, Gemini, means that you are either low energy, behind the scenes, need to kind of get quiet, to reflect, to get your bearings a little bit. Taurus represents what's called your 12th sign. And the 12 sign's a very different sign than all the other signs in your zodiac because it talks about endings. It's sort of the space that prepares us for new beginnings, and that's what you will feel in June when Mercury, your planet, gets into Gemini after this long time. Mercury is also in the same sign as Uranus, and Uranus has been in your 12th since 2018, 2019. It's not the most obvious place for you to really pick up on what Uranus is trying to do because it's happening either on a spiritual, intuitive level, whether you have had, air quotes, an awakening over the past few years, or your relationship with spirituality has profoundly changed, or maybe it's been about you really getting into these deeper existential questions, because the 12 is all about existential questions. Who am I? What does this all mean? What's the meaning of life? What am I connected to? Is there a God? Is there a whatever? because the 12th really starts to put us in touch with that. And so you might be feeling more intuitive, more emotional, more spiritual at this time. Pay attention to your dreams. Maybe something is trying to open itself and reveal to you. And we are coming right off of that Scorpio lunar eclipse, which is about health and wellness, or how you take care of your human life. And so how do you find the balance between your human day-to-day real world life, real world needs, but also your spiritual needs as well? Cancer, a lot going on in your sign right now, all in advance of your season. You've got Venus now in your sign, and you've had Mars in your sign since March 25th of 2023. Mars is a very different influence than Venus. Mars is the get up and go planet. It is the I want this, I want it now planet. And maybe you've been feeling a little emotional, a little testy, or even a lot of drive and power over the past, a month and a half at this point. Venus is a little bit more of a calming energy. Venus is a little bit more the negotiator, the peacemaker than Mars is, and maybe Venus is going to try to smooth a little, kind of smooth things over if anything has been coming up for you in the past month and a half. Taurus season for you, Cancer, is about friends and community, and for you to really look at how your sense of friends and community, or even your sense of social issues and social causes, and your sort of view on the world has shifted over the past 4 or 5 years. Every Cancer is going to live this time differently. For some Cancers, it has been some big changes in your social circle, or big changes in friendships. For other Cancers, people who have come in, who are the energy of Uranus, are just trying to get you to see things differently, open up. Or maybe Uranus has been bringing you your people, the people that you've been always looking for. So whatever happens this week about, friends and community, that sense of connection and belonging in the world, it's part of a bigger story that has been with you the past few years. You're coming off of a lunar eclipse that really put the spotlight on you in a way, but more not you directly, but what makes you you, like kind of really focusing on your talents and gifts and abilities. And maybe with that full moon, you had to really stand up for yourself, or take action, or go after something that you wanted. Venus is kind of a bigger player in your astrology. It rules home, it rules family, and you're getting a little bit of a steady hand from Saturn this week. So maybe if there have been a lot of ups and downs, Saturn's going to help you smooth things out as you go into the end of the week. Leo. A lot of things going on with Leo this week. And so Leo, let's start with that lunar eclipse that we had just a few days ago as I'm recording this. That lunar eclipse in Scorpio was in the sign of home and family. And for some Leos, it means a move. For some Leos, it means to really need to focus on something that is about family, or about your household, or needing to get back to the things that are important, or sort of these sort of deeper emotional themes around safety and stability. Then that brings me to Uranus, and we've talked about this, Leo, over the past few years. Since May of 18, March 2019, Uranus, this evolutionary force, has been in your career sign. And so every Leo is going to live this differently. I've seen the gamut. I've seen a Leo rising who has made a 180 in their career. They have left one industry and they've gone into another. I've seen Leo risings completely reshape their sense of priorities in the world, because the 10th, which we do say, well, it's career, but it is career, but it's also your sense of place in the world, sort of the duties and responsibilities that you naturally step into. And, we can work hard just to earn a living, or we can actually create something in the world that feeds us and is an expression of who we are. For some Leos, this might be a week of shakeups either in your professional life, or the direction that you're taking things in, or even your relationship with duty and responsibility. And maybe for some Leos, the most, kind of the question you need to ask yourself is like, what is the most radical thing you can do in your professional life right now? Maybe it means jumping ship. Maybe it means going after something that is what you really want, something that's a truer expression of who you are. And I think once Mars gets into Leo, I think that's in a week and a half from now, on the 20th, that's when some things are really going to start to take off from you. So if you don't see that Sun-Uranus conjunction this week, you might need to get into the next week and a half, because we got Jupiter going into your career sign next week. We'll talk about that later. We've got Mars going into Leo. Pluto's in Aquarius already, and it's just a lot of things are shifting and moving as we go into the second half of May. Virgo. So Virgo, Mercury is your planet. It continues to be retrograde. I believe it's for another week. Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's next week. So Mercury is in Taurus, and I said this last week, and I'll say this again. This has just been this time to really reevaluate how you see things, what you stand for, what you believe is true. A lot of us were like, oh yeah, that's totally true. Like I'm gonna completely just zero in on that, and then but maybe lose sight of everything else. And so there's been a need to really open up your view, your eyes, and to consider different expressions or different perspectives, different values, for example. And with Sun Uranus and Taurus, same sign as where your Mercury is hanging out, this is actually playing off of a much bigger story that's been with you since 2018, 2019. Uranus in what's called your ninth sign, it's not as like a concrete experience as it is with some of the other signs, because it talks about philosophy, it talks about faith. You can't touch philosophy, you can't touch faith or even touch belief. But this is really where Uranus is doing its work, is a work of revelation. Every Virgo is going to live this differently, whether your sense of connection with the world, your sense of how you see the world, your sense of your internal compass has to change, your sense of right and wrong, maybe even looking at how you can be judgmental, and maybe how do you shift your relationship with judgment and sort of, have it not be judgmental, but have just be a discernment, see what's right for you. That said, you are coming off the heels of that Scorpio full moon eclipse. And for you, Virgo, Scorpio is your sign of information, ideas, communication. What was going on this past week? Virgo, what's going on this week? Because sometimes when you have a lunar eclipse in what's called your third sign, information can come, or something that really forces you to make different choices and to go into different directions. And maybe when Mercury finally turns direct next week, I believe, things can start to really move, and in some case, because it is picking up the energy of eclipses, move fast. Libra, your planet is Venus, and it just switched signs. So it's now in Cancer, and for you, Cancer is something called a career sign. So over the next 4 weeks, sometimes it's 3 if Venus is moving fast, and Venus may be moving fast. This is a time for you to really focus on career, your professional duties and responsibilities, that sort of bigger question of what's your role in the world? What do you want to be when you grow up? And so Venus is really pushing you to take the next step up in your professional life. Maybe you feel really inspired and motivated to really work towards an achievement or work towards a goal while Venus is in Cancer. Mars is also in that sign, and Mars has been there since March 25th. So a little bit of a longer time, and Mars is a very different energy than Venus. Mars is a little bit more brusque, a little bit more hardworking, a lot of drive, a lot of initiative, and Venus might start to kind of smooth things out a little bit. And it'll be kind of interesting to see, how do these two energies start to come together in that short window while they are still in the same sign, because Mars does not leave your career sign until May 20th. By the way, Mars doesn't come to your career sign, it's once every 2 years. So this, in a way, is a career peak for you. And to really use this time to go after what you want, what you need, your ambitions, to build, construct, Venus is going to really start to give it a little bit more substance and connection over the next few weeks. All of this is on the heels of that lunar eclipse in Scorpio. that put the spotlight on money and income, material stability, material security. In a similar way, you have Uranus, and that's Sun-Uranus conjunction in something called your 8th. So kind of like when I was talking to Virgo a few months ago, Uranus is going through a space that it's not as tangible. It's not money, it's not career. In a way, it could be money, it could be assets and wealth and estates and benefits. But, I think that there's a deeper emotional process that's happening with Uranus in your 8th sign, and to really look at, what has been the emotional revelation over the past 4 or 5 years. What's your relationship with your emotional health, your mental health and wellness, 2018 versus now? Has there been a lot of healing, a lot of deeper work, a lot of release work? Sometimes Uranus, for some Libras, it's about really letting go of the past and the things that you've been really holding on to. For other Libras, to really get into and to face the things that you have been a little bit emotionally disassociated with, for example. But that's, you do have Venus, which is your planet, making a nice sextile to Saturn this week. So maybe that Saturn's going to give you a little bit of a stabilizing and grounding influence as you start to come to the end of the week. Scorpio. So Scorpio, you were in the spotlight a few days ago. So this is the last eclipse in your sign for another 9 years. I know, 9 years. This is why eclipses are kind of a big deal. I know they happen every 6 months, but they don't happen in certain signs for every 9 years. So this eclipse, in a way, it could be a coda, it could be the end of something, it could be the resolution of something. It really puts a punctuation into your life right now. And for some Scorpios, you're really feeling it, meaning the events are happening now. This is the thing about eclipses, and I know it sounds a little annoying, but I don't make the astrology rules. Sometimes the eclipse can present itself 2, 3, sometimes even a couple of months after that lunar eclipse. I've seen eclipses come in before the eclipse. That's kind of crazy. And it really shows that time is not this linear concept that we think of. It's really this energy, and there's sometimes even this spiral-like energy that we see with eclipses. They open these doors. So Scorpio, you're in the hot seat right now. Life might be a little loud. It might be a little capital L life. Maybe things are moving, shifting, changing. It's almost like, I use this analogy a lot with eclipses. The curtain comes down on one act and the curtain comes up on another. And sometimes it's a very different cast of characters in this act than it was in the last act. But I'm saying this as a Scorpio. It's kind of crazy how, like clockwork, here we go. Here are the eclipses. The energy of this eclipse pointed towards Mars and Cancer. Your planet is Mars. It's still in Cancer. So it gets into these themes about faith and truth and meaning. And what do you stand for? What do you believe in? What's your convictions? What are those things that you can't negotiate away? They're a principle, for example. And for some Scorpios, it's about foreign travel, search, exploration, finding truth, and sometimes finding truth in other lands, long-distance lands, for example. By the way, Sun conjunct Uranus, so we have to go way back to 2018, 2019, when Uranus first went to Taurus, which is Scorpio's relationship sign. Every Scorpio is going to live this transit differently. It really depends on the conditions of your life at that time. Meaning, what is your relationship with relationship? Maybe you went into this transit and you're 10 years single. You're one of those don't trust no one Scorpios. I got this, hyper self-reliant Scorpios. Or maybe you're one of those, you're kind of 10, 15, 20, 30 years into a marriage and it's not working. And maybe you saw some big changes in your primary relationship over the past few years. Or maybe you went from being completely dead in the water single to suddenly that's changing and changing fast. I have seen people come into Scorpio's lives who are like Uranus. Their job is to get Scorpio to wake up, to transform, to reinvent. If it's not like capital R relationship, it's to change all relationships, meaning how do you connect, interact, and socialize? The purpose of relationships, at least within the context of the astrological wheel, is to remind us that we can't do life alone. Life needs balance. It needs socialization. It can't be so, Aries, Aries being the first sign, that we lose connection with other people. It can't be so much about other people that we lose our individuality and identity. Aries, but you're a Scorpio. But that sort of rough, thinking applies to you as well. But this is potentially a big week, and one that plays off of the energies of eclipses, plays off of a story that's been with you over the past 3, 4, 5 years. And especially as you go into, next week, Jupiter goes into Taurus, your relationships. Oh, we got a lot to talk about next week, Scorpio. Jupiter goes into Taurus. Jupiter is going to make bigger or give life or, enlarge that area of your life. And so the big focus is going to be on relationship for a year starting next month. Then Mars is going to go into Leo, your career sign, playing off the energies of Pluto and Jupiter. So Scorpio, the wheel of your life is changing yet again. I know I don't make the astrology. I just report on it. But that's just for you to know, Scorpio, that may be a turning point for you. Sagittarius. So Sag, you are wrapping up Jupiter's time in Aries. And we've been talking about this, a little bit, because your planet is Jupiter. So the energies of your sign have been pointing towards Aries. The last year and change, give or take, 'cause Jupiter jumped in and out a couple of times, has been about focusing on creativity, self-expression, being you, finding your individuality, your identity, your persona. For some Sagittariuses, it's been about really finding your creative voice and getting into creative activities. Creativity isn't always art, but it's your ability to put the spirit of yourself into something. That's real creativity. For some Sagittarius, Jupiter in this time has been about romance. It's been about play, passion, children, and maybe was even a pregnancy while Jupiter was in Aries. That said, the story is going to start to change next week, and this is just to kind of put this on your radar. On May 16th, Jupiter, your planet, goes into Taurus, so it moves the energy of your sign towards Taurus. Taurus is an area that talks about, for you in particular, Sagittarius, about health, wellness, taking care of your body. How do you exist in your body? How do you run your day-to-day life? Sometimes we have a hard time running our day-to-day life. And over the past few years, Uranus has been in Taurus. And I've seen, a spectrum of experience while Uranus has been in Taurus for Sagittarius, from big changes in health and wellness for Sag. It could be positive changes. It could be changes in something with body. I know that's a little bit more of a distressing example. I've seen Sagittariuses that just make changes in diet, start going to the gym, have a very different relationship with their body, because health and wellness is different for everybody. And something about their day-to-day life needing to run differently than it did, back a few years ago. Jupiter is going to join this energy, so it's going to be really interesting to see how stories start to merge and come together. They got this one since 2018, 2019, and then the energy of you. Jupiter might make things bigger. Jupiter might give us faith, make us confidence, and maybe kind of give us the ability to start to capitalize on some of the healthy changes that you've been putting in place over the past few years. You are, however, coming off of a Scorpio lunar eclipse, and that lunar eclipse put the spotlight on something called your 12th. Every Sag is going to live this eclipse differently. The 12th is on its fundamental level a space that exists outside this world. It's about spirituality. It's about really trying to open up to the bigger aspects of our universe, and what is your connection to that. I realize that's a very deep statement, but I know you can handle it, Sag. You love these sort of bigger questions about life. For some, Sag is about letting something go. It's about endings. It's about really making space for new things to come in. But with the energy of Taurus and Uranus, the energy of that Scorpio eclipse, It's about finding the balance between your human life, your day-to-day life, and all the responsibilities and duties that come with it, and also your spiritual life and the duties and responsibilities that come with that as well. Where do you find the balance between human you and also something that's much bigger than yourself? So maybe you're asking yourself really deep existential questions. What does it mean? Where am I going? How do I make changes? But May is probably going to be a pivot point for you, especially as Jupiter, your ruler, gets into Taurus and starts to activate some of these bigger stories that have been with us the past couple of years. Capricorn. So Capricorn, your planet is Saturn. It's still in Pisces. I'm going to keep saying that for 3 years. Hopefully that does not get annoying. But it continues to be this time for you to really develop, to take responsibility for your voice. That includes every choice that you make. I know, no big deal. But your third sign isn't just voice and communication. It's your ability to really understand your world and have the wisdom and maturity, Saturn, to make the right choices. However you want to define that. That said, you are coming off of a Scorpio eclipse. That eclipse put the spotlight on friends and community. And maybe, especially because it's the last eclipse in Scorpio, to really look back on the shifts in your social circle and your friends since 2021. More like 2022. That said, this is bringing to the end this story, and with Mars, the ruler of that eclipse, down in Cancer, which is your relationship sign, this is also a time to really look at relationships. Venus goes into Cancer, and it sort of really energizes this space, and I feel like I had a Capricorn client that was really living like word for word some of the things that I was talking about, because there was that Aries new moon eclipse that we had on April 20th that's about changes in home, changes in family, changes in living situation, changes in relationship. I think a partner was moving and it was all happening very fast. But anyway, so it's really, this is a lot of things are happening on like the bigger points of your astrology right now. And really see how this is a change of seasons for you, Capricorn. And maybe as you go into this, change of seasons, with Saturn in Pisces, your third sign, like how do you make the decisions that are in alignment with your intuition as opposed to your mental mind? Oh wait, I forgot to talk about Uranus with Capricorn. So Uranus has been in Capricorn's fifth sign since 2018, 2019. And the fifth sign talks about identity. And there's probably been a shift in how you express who you are over the past 3, 4, and even 5 years. Uranus is just trying to break you out of whatever conditioning or whatever past traumas, whatever sort of illusions or whatever that isn't you. It's about reconnecting to the spirit of who you are, the passion of who you are, so that it can live in your life by any means possible. So it's really to reflect, Capricorn, on the version of who you are in 2018, 2019, and the version of who you are now. Aquarius. So, Saturn is your planet. It continues to be in Pisces for the next 3 years. So this continues to be a little bit more of an intuitively driven time for you, a time when you're trying to align to your larger spiritual values, or to focus on money and income, material stability and material security. And how do you take care of that very human part of your life, but make sure that's in alignment with your bigger values? That said, you're just off of a very powerful eclipse in Scorpio that was on May 5th in your career sign. Now, every Aquarius is going to live this differently, and maybe you might even not, be still working, but this is a time when your professional life is in the spotlight, or a time for you to really step into or leave a position or a role that is a duty and responsibility in your life. Taurus season for you highlights the fact that Uranus has been in Taurus since 2018, 2019. And I said this in the introduction. I ran into this connection that I had over the past, I hadn't seen her in 3 years, and we were kind of catching up on life. And I was like, what's your rising sign again? Oh, Aquarius. I'm so sorry. It was a joke. But Aquarius is a sign where a lot of things have been changing and happening over the past few years. And I think not always in the easiest way. Since 2018, 2019, Uranus has been in something called your fourth sign, home and family, and to really reflect on the changes either in the physical changes in your household, physical changes in home. I've a lot of Aquariuses that have made big moves over the past few years. If it's not the physicality of home, it's the emotionality of home, making sure that you are rooted and grounded, you are getting your needs met, and maybe getting your needs met is the most radical thing that can happen right now. So really see what is the story that's coming up this week, and it may be playing off of these eclipses. It's sort of the Taurus Scorpio for you as the backbone for your astrology. So it's like this is a huge structural point in your astrology, and to see how is that shifting and changing your life as you go into the rest of the week and even into next week when Jupiter joins. And we've got lots to talk about next week, Aquarius. Pisces, last but not least, Pisces. So your planet Jupiter is getting ready to leave Aries. So it's been in Aries for give or take a year. And Aries is your sign of money, income, material stability, and material security. And of course, every Pisces is going to live this sign differently. And maybe one Pisces is a lot of spending, or another Pisces is really focusing on earning more money to create a more material stability and security, or maybe even sort of larger abstract themes about money, self-worth, value, and life. That said, Jupiter goes into Taurus next week, May 16th, and it's like the big hand, or sort of the hour hand on your clock is starting to shift. It's going to point towards ideas, information, education, writing, speaking, communicating, really finding your voice, really exercising your mind. But, it's not just that. Jupiter joins Uranus, and Uranus has been in this space since 2018 and 2019. It's hard to say exactly what this means for you because Uranus, it really meets you where you are. It's very specific to your own astrology. But at the core of this time is for you to find your voice. And either how you speak or how you used to speak 3, 4, 5 years ago is very different than how you speak now. Maybe it's with more confidence. Maybe it's finding your voice, inhabiting your voice, or maybe really shifting your relationship with your mind. And, maybe for some people, you didn't think you were intelligent, or you didn't think that education was a priority for you. And Uranus really shifts and changes that. This is all off the heels of that powerful Scorpio full moon. It put into the spotlight your 9th sign of faith, truth, meaning, and maybe you've got some really deep existential questions, kind of bubbling in your life right now. It's also important just to kind of quickly check in with Saturn and Pisces and something that's in your sign. So this is like this time when you got to stand on your own 2 feet. You got to be in charge. You got to be the leader. You got to kind of take responsibility. It's a little bit all on you. And maybe this is a time for you to really stand on your voice again, make different decisions, and to really awaken something for you. But we have more to talk about this next week, especially because to put it really into context with Jupiter's arrival in Taurus on May 16th. And Jupiter is what's called your ruling planet. So that is your look at the astrology for May 8th through 14th, 2023. My name is Katie Sweetman again, and yes, we have been looking at the astrology and particularly what is going on with Uranus and Taurus. So I thank you all, and I thank you for those that are watching live. It's always lovely to see familiar faces, and I know a lot of you are my clients as well. You can book a consultation with me. You can follow me online, empoweringastrology.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, and of course, I get to see you all every week. So have a wonderful week. Take care, and I'm sure we have lots to talk about when Jupiter goes into Taurus next week. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.